Stranger Things Season 5 is right around the corner, the final season. So we're taking a look back at seasons 1 through 4, each in a different video. This is a complete recap of everything that happened in Season 2. I bet you're wondering how I got here. Now it's 1984, and this is the season that gave us Max and Billy and everybody's favorite character, Collie, and that's who we start with. The opening shot of Season 2 is a group of criminals. They've just killed a man. They flee in a van. They're pursued by police, and a person that we don't know has powers yet reveals their powers. They can create illusions in other people's minds, and they make all the cop cars crash at the tunnel. It's so much fun. What is that? Surely that's going to be a huge part of the plot. We go back to Hawkins. The boys go to a Palace arcade. They saved up a bunch of quarters where they find that someone named Mad Max has beaten Dustin's high score in Dig Dug by over 100,000 points. At the arcade, Will experiences an episode. He gets the Will tingles. It's like a Spidey sense, where he finds himself in the upside-down version of the arcade. He sees a large shadow monster. Later, we find out it's called the Mind Flayer. The next day at school, they made a new student from California named Max Mayfield, who immediately captures the affection of Lucas and Dustin. At Hawkins High, Max's stepbrother Billy Hargrove arrives and begins to compete with Steve for the title of king. And it's really upsetting, and it's for no reason whatsoever, and eventually they play basketball shirtless a lot, and for some reason Billy's always like, dibs on skins. Will, who has been experiencing the episodes frequently, is taken by Joyce and Hopper to Hawkins' lab, where he is seen by Dr. Sam Owens, the new head scientist. Meanwhile, Joyce has begun seeing Bob Newby, a classmate from high school and the manager of the local Radio Shack. That store is gonna go far. What a good investment, Bob. Nancy and Steve have been having regular dinners with the Holland family following Barb's death. #Justice for Barb. Nancy, who's still grieving Barb's death, learns that the Hollands, who are unaware that Barb is dead, are selling their house to afford to pay an investigative journalist named Murray Bauman to find Barb. Nancy feels responsible and guilty. Mike has been trying to contact Eleven for 352 days in a row after her disappearance. He's not given up on her, though unsuccessful. Later, Hopper goes to a cabin in the woods where it is revealed he lives there with Eleven the whole time. The whole time? Flashbacks show that after killing the Demogorgon, Eleven turned up in the Upside Down. She escapes through a portal and goes to see Mike at the Wheeler house, but flees into the woods after seeing government agents. More flashbacks show that Hopper finds her and sets up his grandfather's hunting cabin as a place for them to live. Back in the present, Eleven wants to go trick-or-treating, but is told no, because she's a ghost. It's so cute. You couldn't deny it, but he does. Hopper says it's too dangerous. In the middle of that, he's called to a pumpkin patch. Not for fun, though. It's after reports of rotting pumpkins have come through. Nancy wants to tell the Hollands the truth, but is persuaded not to by Steve. They attend a Halloween party where Nancy gets wasted and berates Steve, saying everything is bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. You're bullshit. Hair's bullshit. Barb, justice for Barb, bullshit. And also says that she doesn't love him. Steve leaves upset, and Jonathan finds Nancy and takes her home because he's always swooping in at the right moment. You know, he's like the opposite of a wingman, whatever that is. The boys go trick-or-treating and are joined by Max, and Will has another episode and tells Mike about the visions he's been having, but requests him not to tell anybody. Mike admits to Will that he has been unsuccessfully trying to communicate with Eleven. Eleven tries to contact Mike, who was also simultaneously calling her using his supercom from the basement, but it's unsuccessful. Dustin returns home after trick-or-treating to find a small, strange, slug-like creature in his trash can, which he determines is a pollywog. Turns out, plot twist, it's not. Bob encourages Will to stand up to his fears. That's bad advice in this case. Nancy is able to persuade Jonathan to help her tell Barb's parents the truth. Hopper asks Owens to investigate the pumpkins. Dustin brings the pollywog to school, which he has now named D'Artagnan from the Three Musketeers novel. Will describes these episodes, and the boys conclude Dart is from the Upside Down. Dart escapes from the AV room, and the boys and Max scramble to find Dart. Mike, in the gym, gets into an argument with Max because Lucas and Dustin want to bring her into the party. Eleven leaves the cabin to look for Mike and interprets Mike's argument as flirting. She uses her powers to knock Max over and leaves. That's my applesauce. That's what she's thinking. Get off my Kool-Aid. At the buyer's house, Joyce discovers an image of Will's vision, including a vague outline of the shadow monster. On the video, Will recorded while trick-or-treating. After seeing the tracing of the outline matches with a picture Will drew, Joyce goes to the middle school. Will finds Dart, but this triggers another episode where he comes face-to-face with the shadow monster. Will follows Bob's advice and confronts the monster, but the monster forces a tentacle down Will's throat. Not again! Will awakens from the episode to the concern of Joyce and his friends. Joyce takes Will home, but he begins acting strangely and begins drawing scribbles on multiple pages. Joyce calls in Hopper, and they find the scribbles line up, which form a network of vines. Hopper recognizes an area and leaves. Nancy and Jonathan arrange a meeting with Barb's mother, but are caught by undercover lab agents. They are taken to the lab where Owens shows the two the gate to the Upside Down and admits to Barb's death. He tells them they have been tapping their phones, which is how they know about the meeting with Barb's mom, to keep the other governments from learning about the portal. When they are released, Nancy reveals that she recorded the confession. It was their plan the whole time. Sneaky, sneaky Nancy. At the cabin, 11 has an argument with Hopper and later finds his research into her biological mother, Terry Ives, and attempts to contact her with her powers. Mike worries about Will and goes to check on him at the Byers' house after requesting Dustin and Lucas to search for Dart. Hopper goes to the pumpkin patch, where he digs a hole which leads to a tunnel system in the Upside Down. He becomes trapped and passes out. Will sees a vision of Hopper's state, but Joyce cannot figure out the meaning of the vision. She enlists Bob for help, as his nickname in high school was Bob the Brain. Bob was able to identify the tunnels as a map underneath Hawkins and is able to roughly locate where Hopper was trapped. Lucas tries to get closer to Max, but Billy warns her to stay away from him. At Dustin's house, he finds Dart has broken from his cage and ate his pet cat. Dustin then finds that Dart is a baby Demogorgon. Nancy and Jonathan go to Murray Bauman with the tape. Murray knows the public won't accept the story as is, but suggests watering down the story after taking a few shots of vodka. Murray and Nancy decide to change the story to say that Barb died from toxins from the lab. Murray sends the tape to the Chicago Sun-Times, where he was previously employed. Lucas tells the events of last year to Max in an attempt to gain her respect, but she doesn't believe him. Dustin lures Dart to his storm cellar and traps him, and it's baloney that lures him, and it's really funny. It's a great scene. He goes to the Wheeler's house to find any of the boys, but none of them are there. On his way out, he runs into Steve, who is coming to apologize to Nancy. Dustin enlists Steve for help and tells him to get to the bat of nails from the last season. They attempt to kill Dart, but instead find his shed skin and a tunnel dug out. He's gone! 11 goes to Terry's house, where she is able to communicate with her powers. She gains Terry's memories of 11 being taken at birth, and Terry attempts to rescue her before she was subjected to shock therapy. 11 finds that there was another girl at the lab just like her. Joyce, Bob, Will, and Mike are able to rescue Hopper, but lab personnel arrive and blaze the tunnels with flamethrowers. When the fire is set, Will collapses in agony. Will is rushed to the lab, where he displays memory loss, unable to remember Bob or Hopper. Owen speculates that the shadow monster is like the virus that has infected Will, and that any damage to the tunnels might also be lethal to him. That's a plot twist. Nancy and Jonathan spend the night at Murray's, where he prods them about their relationship. The two later have a romantic encounter. Dustin and Steve decide to lure Dart to the junkyard, and Dustin calls Lucas for help. Lucas brings Max, of course, and the four ready the junkyard to trap Dart. Max opens up to Lucas and explains Billy's attitude is due to his father marrying Max's mother. Dart appears at the junkyard with creatures identical to him, and the group learns that there are packs of these demo dogs. The group hide in the bus, and Steve later attacks them with the bat, of course, but the creatures all run away suddenly. At the lab, Will views pictures of the map taken by lab agents and points out a location that the shadow monster wants to avoid. Owens sends in a team to investigate, but the pack attacks the team and enters the lab. They realize that the monster has been manipulating Will. Meanwhile, 11 goes to Chicago in search of the girl in Terry's memories. This is everyone's favorite episode, who was revealed to be the psychic girl from the events in Pittsburgh, a woman named Kali. The two connect, where Kali shows 11 her powers. She explains to 11 that her gang is attempting to kill the lab scientists who worked under Brenner for what they did to her. Kali tells 11 to channel her anger, just like how Palpatine told Anakin, and everything worked out fine there. The group goes to the home of a lab worker who performed shock therapy on Terry, who claims Brenner is alive. 11 decides not to kill him after learning he has kids, and the gang is forced to flee. 11 has a vision of Mike and Hopper in grave danger at the lab and leaves to return to Hawkins. Back at the lab, the pack of demo dogs overwhelm the lab, killing many of the workers, almost all of them. Outside the gates, Nancy and Jonathan have arrived at the lab and encounter Steve, Dustin, Lucas, and Max, who have followed the screams of the pack in the lab. Mike is able to convince Joyce to sedate Will. He's a spy. He's gonna snitches get stitches, something like that. Mike, Will, Hopper, Joyce, Bob, and Owens flee into the security room, where they are trapped. The power goes out, and Bob, knowing how to reset the power, volunteers to do so because he's the only one that speaks basic. Bob successfully activates the power and Owens stays behind in the room to guide out the group. Mike, Will, Hopper, and Joyce are able to escape to the lobby. Bob makes it to the lobby, but is caught and killed by the pack, and it's one of the most devastating things you will ever see. The remaining four regroup with the others outside the gate and go to the Byers' house. The group deduces that the shadow monster is a hive mind controlling Will and the pack, and if they kill it, its influence on those they control will end. Mike, who previously deduced that the shadow monster is using Will like a spy, tells the group, who decide to remodel the tool shed so Will doesn't know where he is, so the shadow monster cannot spy. Are you following me? Will awakens where Joyce, Jonathan, and Mike share their fondest memories of Will in an attempt to get him to snap out of it. Will doesn't respond vocally, but taps out a message in Morse code. Good thing he knows Morse code, and so does everyone else, which reads close gate. However, the house phone rings, leading to the monster to identify their location. As the pack moves in, the group barricades themselves in the Byers' house, armed, but the pack is surprisingly dispatched by 11, who has returned to Hawkins, and she looks bitchin'. Mike and 11 get emotional to see each other alive after a year and embrace together. The group briefly reunites with 11. When 11 convinces Hopper that she can close the gate, Mike points out that it may also kill Will. Joyce remembers something Will said about the monster in the lab. He likes it cold and decides to burn the monster out. Hopper and 11 go to the lab to close the gate. Meanwhile, Joyce, Jonathan, and Nancy take Will to Hopper's cabin. The group turns on the fire and the heaters and are finally able to purge the virus from Will after Nancy prods him with a hot iron, which was a crazy move. Who let her do that? He's a child. I approve it. At the Byers' house, Mike, concerned about 11, convinces the group to burn the tendrils at the tunnels to distract the demo dogs from attacking Hopper and 11. But Steve rebuffs the plan and refuses. Back at Billy's house, his abusive father reprimands him for losing track of Max and sends him to find her. His search takes him to the Wheeler's house, where Mrs. Wheeler gives him Joyce's address. He goes there, where after a tense confrontation with Steve, goes inside. After seeing Max with Lucas still, Billy grabs Lucas, but Steve attacks Billy and they have a fist fight. Who's gonna win? Of course it's not Steve. Billy knocks Steve unconscious, beats the shit out of him, honestly, but continues to punch him. Max grabs the syringe Mike brought from the hospital and injects Billy with it. Max steals Billy's keys. Steve awakens in Billy's car, where Max drives the group to the tunnels. Steve and the kids enter, where they cover the heart of the tunnels in gas and ignite it. Since the tunnel is ignited, the demo dogs become distracted and return to the tunnel, leaving the lab unguarded, and so Hopper and 11 enter the gate without facing any of them. Meanwhile, the kids go to leave, but encounter Dart. However, Dustin is able to calm him down, and the group escapes. They've got a bond, you know? D'Artagnan and the Three Musketeers bars. When 11 tries to close the gate, the Mind Flayer senses her strength and sends the demo dogs to attack her. As Hopper defends 11 from the swarming demo dogs, it's awesome. 11 is able to channel her anger, do it, and closes the gate, killing the remaining monsters in the process. A month later, the lab has been shut down by government following the publication of Nancy's tape. The Hollands hold a proper funeral for Barb, #Justice4. Owens meets with Hopper in a bar, where he gives Hopper a forged birth certificate, listing him as the father of Jane Hopper. Steve drives Dustin to the Snowball, the annual Hawkins Middle Winter Dance, where he meets with the party. A slow dance starts, and Will is asked to dance. Lucas asks Max to dance. Dustin asks multiple girls to dance, but is rejected. Nancy, who is serving punch at the dance, pure fuel, sees Dustin alone and upset and dances with him. Outside, Joyce talks with Hopper. 11 shows up, where she dances with Mike. Lucas and Max kiss, and 11 and Mike kiss right after. The students enjoy themselves at the dance, unaware that the shadow monster is still alive, towering over the school in the upside down, like, hey, nobody invited me to dance, but I'm here. And that's everything that happened in season 2. If you like Stranger Things, make sure to check out the Streaming Things podcast, available on all platforms, and make sure to like and subscribe to this video. And season 3 will be recapped soon, so look out for that. Ring that bell.